My friend Diana got fired. At the time, she was a tenure-track professor, and she was living out in California. And the college professor, or the college president rather, called her into his office to deliver the news. And when it comes to any action that deprives a person of their livelihood, and even to a degree some of their identity, this is not a small thing. So after giving Diana the news, the college president said something that has stuck with her over the years. He said, "Someday, you'll thank me for this." She didn't want to thank him. She wanted to throttle him. This month, we're talking about gratitude. And as I've said, this is an area in my life that I have been working on. Last week, I was just, overwhelmed but amazed at all the feedback that I heard from people in this church community expressing about how you express and how you experience gratitude, where you see the source of it. Is it how you honor the source of blessings or luck or whatever in between, how you see that? Now, the benefits for practicing gratitude are huge. There are psychological, there are spiritual, there are physical benefits to gratitude. People who tend to practice gratitude, they tend to be happier, healthier. They tend to have more fulfilling relationships. There's a lot of good reasons to develop an ethic, a practice of gratitude. But sometimes the world seems dead set against developing this in yourself. Diana was not happy. Nope, she was not happy at all. She was hurt. She was embarrassed. And then she was told that she should be thankful for being fired. In our biblical story, Joseph was a proud young man who irritated his brothers. And so he, like Diana, was struggling to fit in, struggling to find his place. Now, Joseph wasn't exactly fired, but here's his story.
Joseph's brothers saw him in the distance before he got close to them, and they plotted to kill him. The brothers said to each other, "Here comes the big dreamer. Come on now, let's kill him and throw him into one of the cisterns, and we'll say a wild animal devoured him. Then we will see what becomes of his dreams." When Reuben heard what they said, he saved him from them, telling them, "Let's not take his life." Reuben said to them, "Don't spill his blood. Throw him into this desert cistern, but don't lay a hand on him." He intended to save Joseph from them and take him back to his father. When Joseph reached his brothers, they stripped off Joseph's long robe, took him, and threw him into the cistern, an empty cistern with no water in it. When they sat down to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with camels carrying sweet resin, medicinal resin, and fragrant resin on their way down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What do we gain if we kill our brother and hide his blood? Come on, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. Let's not harm him because he's our brother, he's family." His brothers agreed. When some Midianite traders passed by, they pulled Joseph up out of the cistern. They sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph to Egypt.
Joseph was out of there. Diana, out of there. And it hurt. And things didn't get better right away. Diana and Joseph both had to face the choices that they had made. And honestly, some of them weren't pretty. Yes, they were poorly treated. They were wronged. But what I'm learning about gratitude is that it is not contingent on the stuff that happens to us. Gratitude is more than a feeling. Gratitude is an ethic. It's a way of living. It's a way of living with principles and practices that reshape how you live. And that's what I'm figuring out. Now, after getting fired, Diana, she got together with a friend and she told him the story about her firing. And what she wanted him to rush to her defense, validate her anger. Instead, he said, "You know, he's right. One day I bet you will thank him." What? Diana was about to add one more guy to the throttle list. Her friend then told him or her his story about getting fired. For him, he had to face some of the dark, hard truths about his alcoholism. He had to face his dark side. So she asked him, "Did you? Did you thank the guy who fired you?" "Yes, eventually. At first I wanted to throw him off a cliff. But yes, I did actually thank him years later, after I learned gratitude." Diana and Joseph had to face their dark sides. They had to face some hard truths. And that's not easy. A lot of people can carry a grudge for a long time. But both of them learned the truth that gratitude is something that can be learned, it can be developed, and that it takes practice. Counselors and medical professionals, spiritual directors, often will advocate these things that they call gratitude interventions. Now, this is not like a big intervention. This is these little interventions in your day, little cues, like when you wake up, maybe before a meal, the last thing at night, maybe on a Sunday afternoon. Have those moments that you have set aside to remind yourself to look for, to be aware of blessings. Set a reminder on your phone, whatever. Just intentionally take a moment to be aware of something, anything, that you consider a blessing, that you might have some gratitude for. Now, sitting there with her friend, Diana said it was hard. She struggled at first to come up with one thing she was thankful for. There were dozens of things that after being fired that she was afraid of. And then she just blurted out, "Fine, Julie. I am thankful for my friend Julie." And that's the beginning, her friend said. Think of one thing each day. Just start with one. Just do that. And write it down in a journal. So she did. For 3 years, almost every day, she practiced gratitude by finding at least one thing and writing it down in her journal. And it went from being a technique, something that she kind of had to force herself to do, that it became a practice that was almost mechanical. It was routine, kind of like a morning cup of coffee or checking your phone or checking sports scores, whatever your thing is. Now, I don't see Diana that often, but this fall, I noticed a difference in her. She's still brilliant, but she is stronger. And she is more centered than I have ever seen her. The practice of gratitude has made her resilient.
Years later, the same brothers that had sold Joseph into slavery came to Egypt as refugees during a famine. Joseph had become the Pharaoh's second in command, and he brought his family down to Egypt. But when the father died, the brothers thought that Joseph might seek revenge. When Joseph's brothers realized that their father was now dead, they said, "What if Joseph bears a grudge against us? and wants to pay us back seriously for all of the terrible things that we did to him. So they approached Joseph and said, "Your father gave us orders before he died, telling us, 'This is what you should say to Joseph. Please forgive your brother's sins and misdeeds, for they did terrible things to you. Now, please forgive the sins of your servants, of your father's God.' Joseph wept when they spoke to him. His brothers wept too, fell down in front of him and said, 'We're here as your slaves.' But Joseph said to them, 'Don't be afraid. Am I God? You planned something bad for me, but God produced something good from it in order to save the lives of many people, just as he's doing today. Now, don't be afraid. I will take care of you and your children.' So he put them at ease and spoke reassuringly to them."
Joseph changed. He was a different person now. He had learned the secret of gratitude in all situations. When he was a slave, when he was in prison, or when he was living in the palace. Gratitude is not contingent on the stuff that happens to us. Gratitude is more than just a feeling. Gratitude is an ethic. It's a way of living, of having principles and practices that reshape how you live. Gratitude made Joseph resilient. And he became the best version of himself. This past fall, when I saw Diana, I was struck by the change I saw in her. It was remarkable. She had just written a book on gratitude, and she invited me to take an online course with her, which I did. This is an area of my life that I want to grow in. A Christian path, choosing that path, is one that helps you grow into the best version of yourself. It should. To become healthy and creative, emotionally balanced, to mature as a person. And practicing gratitude, it fosters resiliency, which strengthens our physical health. Particularly, doctors say our heart health is strengthened by this, and our ability to recover more quickly from illness and surgery. Resiliency also works to improve our psychological and our spiritual health. So in these past few months, Diana has become my gratitude mentor. Because this is an area that I want to be better. I want to grow in this. And so I'm starting out the way that she did. Each day, I have my little day one journal that I do on my iPad each day. And I have a little thing. I put gratitude : and I put that at least one thing or one person that I am grateful for. Now, she also advises that instead of, when you go to bed, counting blessings instead of sheep, but I'm a little more old school on this one. So I have made it part of my prayer practice to do something called the examen. And I've talked about this before, but I do this right before I go to sleep. And in today's bulletin, I actually put a copy of what I have glued to the cover of my Kindle. So I have my Kindle and I read my book before I go to bed. And then I practice the examen, which is written right there. So I gave you a copy of it today too. And I hope it's helpful to you, something to consider trying. A Christian path is one of those that helps us grow into that best version of ourselves. More resilient and balanced. And gratitude is more than a feeling, it's a practice. It's an ethic that we choose to make part of our lives. And the benefits are many. And perhaps it's something you might want to grow in yourself as well. Will you pray with me? God, thank you. It's probably the simplest and most honest prayer we can make. So thank you. Amen.